This lesson discusses assigning constant values. The topics include: what are constants? How are constants defined? What are predefined constants? And finally, what are magic constants? Moving over to the first code example, what are constants? Constants can be thought of as variables where the value can never change. How are constants defined? They're defined using the define command. You'll notice on line 10, we assign the label that represents the constant, in this case level 1. We then follow that by the value. Constants can be assigned any of the 4 basic data types. So we see examples of integer, float, string, and Boolean. Constants can then be assigned to variables or simply echoed depending on what is most convenient for your application. Let's have a look now at the code example, and we would expect to see the echo command produce error unable to open a file. Moving back to the browser, let's have a look at our first code example. As you can see, we see the string error unable to open a file, which is a value which was assigned to a constant. Let's have a look now at predefined constants. Predefined constants are defined after PHP is installed on your web server. There are many predefined constants. At the bottom of this code example, you can see a reference to the manual reserved.constants.php, which gives you more information. Here are some examples: the PHP version, PHP EOL, which represents end of line. On Linux and Macintosh servers, this will return a line feed character or new line character. On Windows, it will return a carriage return line feed combination. PHP int max. This will show us the maximum size of an integer on this particular server. Moving over to the browser, let's have a look at the second code example. So we can see version is 5.4.4. End of line is not shown. Maximum integer, approximately 2 gigabytes. Once more, we're going to look at the view source. And here you can see the end of line is actually represented here internally in the view source, but the end of line is not visible directly on the browser. The last part of our discussion is on magic constants. Magic constants are defined at runtime. So in other words, every time your program runs, the magic constants will assume certain values at that time. Magic constants are reserved words, which are defined as part of the PHP language. They all start and end with a double underscore. Here are some examples: double underscore file, double underscore. That represents the current file name, the file name that is currently being executed. Double underscore dir, double underscore, represents the directory of the file that's currently being executed. The usefulness of magic constants is that because they change at runtime, they allow your code to become more flexible. Thus, if we move the code example from one directory to another, the magic constant double underscore dir will represent the directory of the file in its exact location at the time the file is running. Moving over to our browser, let's look at the third code example. So we can see here, the file is under Working Files, Chapter 2, Basics Constant Values 3, PHP, and the directory is the directory of the currently running file. Again, at the bottom of this code example is a reference to the manual to give you more information about other predefined constants. In review, what are constants? Constants are like variables where the values never change. How are constants defined? Constants are uppercase and they're assigned using the define command. What are predefined constants? These are defined when PHP is installed on the server. What are magic constants? Magic constants assume a value at runtime. They begin and end with a double underscore. This concludes our discussion of assigning constant values.